Hey everyone, Desiree here. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how I use crystals when I do my planning, writing, journaling, that type of thing. Now I shared a picture of one of my notebooks with crystals a couple weeks ago on Instagram, and a few of you said that you would be more interested in hearing how I use crystals for my planning. And I was actually kind of surprised because I didn't think that many people would be interested in it, but I'm happy to share, and I have no problem kind of giving you a little brief overview of what I do. Now I won't go into my entire crystal collection because I do have quite a few, but I will show you the ones that I use most often during planning, meditation, I guess, writing and journaling. Now, I have been using crystals for many, many years. However, I am not an expert. I am not a gemologist. I don't know everything that there is to know about crystals. And I also believe that a lot of times using crystals is a very intuitive thing. So something that may resonate or have meaning to me may not necessarily have that same type of feeling for you. But just remember that this is a very individual thing. And again, I'm just sharing with you what I do, how I do it, and why I do it. Okay, so getting started, you can see my crystals that I have here on one of my notebooks. Now, this is something that I actually started doing last year, was when I started using crystals to, quote, charge my notebooks. And when I say charge my notebooks, what I mean is that I kind of allow a series of crystals to kind of rest on my notebook for a little while, so that way my notebook and the pages in my notebook kind of get some of the energy of the crystals. Now, this may sound a little bit woo-woo for some of you, but I believe that it works. And even if it doesn't do what I set the intention for it to do, it still makes me feel good. So I think that is also a good thing. So I hope that makes sense. But anyway, I've got some of my crystals here in this little container, this dish. I've got a series of crystals here, like I said. And then these are the ones I'm probably going to talk about today because these are the ones I'm finding I'm using most often. Now, if you do know a little bit about crystals, you may know something about using a crystal grid, and that's kind of where I got this idea as far as arranging my crystals in a pattern or in a series, and using my traveler's notebook as where you would, quote, use the grid. But I'm not going to go too deep into that because it's kind of a little bit more involved, and I just kind of want to show you guys the basics. Okay, so let me go ahead and move this stuff out of the way. And let's talk about these crystals here. Now, one of the ways I use crystals is, like I said, sometimes I will place them on my notebook, or what I will do is I will hold the crystal, usually for, you know, maybe a minute or two or however long that feels good. And I will just kind of hold on to this crystal and either meditate or sometimes just think about what I'm trying to accomplish when I'm planning, either for the week, the day, the moment, the month, whatever. And sometimes certain crystals will kind of come out to me or, you know, speak to me. So this one right here, since I'm holding it, is a citrine crystal. This is what's called a raw crystal. In other words, it's pretty much just kind of a chunk. It hasn't been tumbled, which would make it have a smooth surface like this clear quartz here. But citrine is a good crystal for attracting wealth, prosperity, abundance, money, anything like that. Citrine is a really, really good crystal for that. So lately, I've been finding myself wanting to attract more abundance, to kind of create increase in my life, and so I really have been focusing on this particular crystal. So what I will do is, like I said, I'll hold it. Sometimes I'll just look at it and ideas will come to me. Or, you know, it's not that complicated. Sometimes I'll just have this setting down right next to me while I plan, you know, while I'm working in my planner, which right now you guys know I'm using this one here. And sometimes I'll just have it around me. Now, another crystal that is good for abundance, wealth, and prosperity is aventurine, which is a crystal that brings opportunities to you. So let's say you have a business, a online business, or a, you know, brick and mortar store, whatever. You may want more opportunities, maybe in work, relationships, in your health, whatever. This is another good crystal to work with. And again, I'll either hold it or I'll just set it right in front of me. Another crystal that I use for abundance is pyrite. This is also known as fool's gold. And Caden actually really likes this crystal because he also wants to bring money into his life. So I'm going to give him this one after the video is over. But it's just a real pretty shiny rock. And again, this is known as fool's gold. And I always seem to have these three together because they seem to kind of work with each other as far as bringing, oops, let me show you that, as far as bringing wealth and attracting that into your life. So like I said, especially if you have some type of an online business or you're really trying to make some serious gains in your income, which I'm always trying to do. So these three kind of, I seem to always kind of use these three together when I'm focusing on increase or when I'm making plans for increase. Now, when I want focus and clarity of mind, these are the crystals I use for that. I use clear quartz. This is a tumbled stone. I also use a fluorite. This is another beautiful, beautiful stone. This one really helps with focus, concentration, mental sharpness. And I have to say that I do believe that this does really work when it comes to that type of thing. This is a gorgeous crystal I've had for a few months now. I think I bought this one on Amazon. You know, they're not that expensive. They do come in different sizes, so obviously the bigger you get, the more expensive it's going to be. And then this is another piece of clear quartz here. Now the thing about clear quartz is it works really good on its own, but it's also a really good amplifying crystal. So let's say I've had a really stressful, chaotic day. My mind is scattered. I can't think straight. I can't concentrate. Well, I will sometimes use both of these together because the quartz crystal will amplify what the fluorite does, if that makes sense. So you can use quartz crystal pretty much with anything. It's a very powerful crystal on its own, but it's also a really good crystal to use with other crystals. And I find I like to use crystals together. I like to use 2 or more crystals because I find that there's a little bit more synergistic energy, so to speak, when you use more than one crystal. You know, they kind of play off each other, especially if you really have set the intention of what you're going to use your crystals for. So that is the basics of how I use crystals for intentional planning. Now again, this is very basic, kind of an overview of how I use them. This is not an in-depth guide to crystals and how they work and, you know, how you should use them. Again, I'm just sharing what I do. Okay, so now let me talk about a few other crystals because I know a lot of times when we're journaling or when we are using our planners to kind of, I guess, support our relationships, at least I do, I want to show you the crystals I use for that. So I showed you the crystals that I use for wealth and increase, also for mental clarity and sharpness of focus. And these are the crystals here I use for relationships. Now I have a rose quartz. This is in a heart shape. I've had this for so many years. I mean, I think I've had this piece at least 15 years. I mean, seriously. But this is a rose quartz. This is another rose quartz. And you can see, you'll see a lot of variations when it comes to crystals. Even though they're the same stone, sometimes they can look entirely different, or they can look similar, but obviously, you know, not exactly the same. This is an amethyst, another good crystal for love and partnerships and heart healing. And then this one is hematite. And I just think this is a beautiful crystal. Now, I don't know what the exact purpose this stone is used for, but I'll tell you how it feels for me. Hematite is a very beautiful, masculine looking stone for me. And sometimes if I want to support a relationship with the male, or let's say I'm trying to think about a particular male in my life, whether it be a relative or maybe someone you're dating or a friend, whatever, I feel like the hematite stone represents masculine energy for me. So that's pretty much how I use it. I will have this stone to set the intention that I am trying to support a relationship with a male. So that's how I use it. And it's a really pretty stone too. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but it kind of has like a black, but yet also a gunmetal gray kind of color. And to me, it's just a very masculine looking stone. So that is how I use crystals when I'm trying to support relationships. Like I said, and it doesn't have to be romantic necessarily. It could also be, you know, family, friendships, even like work relationships, or let's say, you know, a neighbor, something like that. You know, any type of interaction with another person that you want to support or you want to make better. These are the crystals that I recommend for that. And sometimes, you know, we're writing about people in our lives for whatever reason. So that's why I wanted to throw those in there. Now, I've got some other stones in here. I'm not going to go over them, but I just wanted to show you guys kind of a little bit of stones that I have. I've got another quartz in here. I think that one's turquoise. And sometimes I forget what the names are. I have to look at my book. Let's see. I know I have a lapis. I have lapis and malachite in here somewhere. Or it might be on my dresser. But anyway, you know, once you start getting into crystals, you'll start to notice them everywhere. And you'll start to notice how certain crystals will speak to you, and you'll start to be drawn to certain ones. And then when you read about, you know, what they do and how they're used or what they support, it's very interesting how it's very accurate how those crystals are in alignment with either how you're feeling or what you're thinking. Now, one thing, if you are interested in learning about crystals, this is the book that started it for me. It's called The Crystal Bible. I've had this, I can't even remember how many years it's been, but I first saw this book at my local library, and it was a really good book, so I ended up buying it. And it's not, you know, it's not a big book, but it does have quite a few crystals in here, and it teaches you, you know, the names and what they're used for, where they're found, how you can use them in healing, all that kind of stuff. I'll link it below if you're interested. But I think this is a really good starter book, you know, if you're just starting to learn about crystals and you want to incorporate them into your life and into your home. Okay, so, oh, and let me show you guys this before we close out. Now sometimes you will see stones that look like these. These are not crystals. These are actually glass. These are glass stones. And once you start learning about crystals, you will begin to notice the differences. But these are colored glass. And if you see these, don't mistake them for crystals. And I can't really explain it, but once you start working with crystals and buying them and getting to know them, you will clearly see the difference. And I'm hoping that oops, that is clear. You can see it's just pretty much like cracked glass in here. You know, it's not, it doesn't have the same I guess variations that actual crystals have. Again, this is glass, and it's been artificially colored. You know, they artificially dye these. So while they're pretty, these glass rocks are not going to have the same type of properties as actual crystals. So if you do start buying crystals, just make sure you find a reputable, you know, good source. Because I've seen these and people try to pass them off as crystals and they're not. Okay, so that is it. And before we wrap up, Caden wanted to show something about his crystals. Okay, what are you going to tell us?
This is Diamond Head. He's a Ben 10 alien. And this isn't a crystal. This isn't a real crystal either. This is plastic. It's
okay.
From Ben 10.
Okay.
My crystal.
All right. Thank you, Caden.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone. If you have any questions, please make sure you leave those down below. I hope you found this video helpful. Like I said, it was just a brief overview of how I use crystals with intentional planning and intentional writing. And if you're not subscribed, please make sure you do so. I've got a lot more videos to come. And I think that is it. So if you do use crystals in your life or in your planning, please let me know how you use them below. If you would like to learn more, or if you want me to share more or go in deeper with these crystals, then let me know that too, because I could talk about this all day, but I just don't want to you know, go too far off the beaten track as far as this being my main planning channel. All right, everyone. Thanks again for taking the time to watch. We'll see you in the next video.
Bye.